Hopefully that pumped you up. I'm Zan Rowe. I'm a broadcaster with Triple J and a massive fan of so many of the films that my next guest has provided the other character for, the music of these films. Mary Ramos has helped create the musical identity for more than 100 films in her career, whether it's Reality Bites or The Station Agent, Spotlight, or that amazing Chef Aid episode of South Park. Mary's worked very closely with directors for finding that right song for the exact right moment in a story. And on top of that, she's worked alongside Quentin Tarantino for a good part of the last 20 years, a director who really, music is the character in the film alongside everyone else. Sourcing very obscure songs, she becomes a detective, and more recently, Mary's helped create original music for the film Django Unchained, which has been a whole other adventure. So here to tell us about this incredible job that she has and a whole bunch more, please welcome her to the stage, Mary Ramos. Hey.
Hi.
So much to talk to you about, Mary. I guess first, is there anything that you look for when you're trying to find a song for a scene? Is there one element that you're looking for?
It depends on the scene. If it's a montage, which is a scene, it's a montage of scenes without any dialogue, which is perfect for playing a song with lyrics, which is everybody's dream. You want that big, long montage, love montage or whatever, to play your song in its entirety, which Quentin does so well. Then I listen to lyrics, because lyrics are really important when you don't have any dialogue. If it's a scene that has dialogue, then mostly I listen for the mood and the pickup of the song and the pace. So that's kind of what it is.
Yeah,
Theme.
but always different, I imagine,
It's
depending
always
on what
different.
you're working with.
Yeah, I'm kind of eclectic. I don't have one particular style of things that I work on, so I'm really there essentially to serve the story, whatever story that is. So.
Do you have a collection at home of songs that you like, little files under different ideas or moods, so that you can draw from those depending on what a director wants?
I do, and it grows all the time. It grows when I come to places like this. It grows. I put down, and one of the main things I said was the female swagger songs. Swagger songs are something that I always try and collect, because there's always a place in stories for swagger.
What defines a swagger song then? How do you describe a swagger song?
It's any genre, and it is something that can play under a character pumping themselves up to do something, or it can also be played against that kind of concept, ironically, where somebody's has no confidence whatsoever and they trip or something. You can play, a confident swagger song.
Okay.
Does that explain it?
Yeah, I think we all know what swagger songs are. And
you can
they
have
do
jazz.
work for everything.
Yeah, you can have jazz swagger. I just did a jazz swagger score for this Thurgood Marshall movie that's set in the 1930s. We created a score that's just like that. He walks into a room and boom, he's a badass lawyer, Thurgood Marshall. So.
Do you find that you're just strutting all the time? Like, just because you've got this constant swagger soundtrack
I'll tell you what, that would be a great playlist to have on repeat, swagger.
Yeah, I'm going to search strutting on Spotify as soon as we finish here and find that to live the rest of my day that way.
Oh, I made it up.
How do you balance, particularly in a week like this, Big Sound, where I'm sure you've been meeting with a lot of labels and, of course, musicians who want their music in your films, the films that you work on. How do you balance people pitching their music with what the director has their heart set on?
Well, the way I approach things, it's always, what I'm there to do is support the director's vision. So we'll meet and we'll kind of talk through themes and talk through styles, and sometimes they have an idea and sometimes they don't. So I'll help them hone in on the style by, sending a bunch of different types of things. And, do you like this? No? Okay, do you like this? So we'll hone in on that and then target it. So that's where I'll start. And then that's where the fun comes in. Once I have it set, once I have the idea set and the style set, then I can go through all the different music I've been collecting and hearing and loving and, start sending that through. Sometimes it's difficult to use an indie band because the director and the producers need to have, a famous name to attach to it somehow or whatever. But generally, and especially more and more because there's so much good music out there, that people are more open to using new, up and coming, awesome.
Yeah, and I imagine it's probably a little bit cheaper as well, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
There's that. I mean, budget is always an issue. I mean, especially for me, because I tend to work on projects that are not the big budget, the big Marvel shows and the big, studio productions that have, kind of an unlimited budget. I kind of specialize in working with new directors, up-and-coming directors, indie directors who don't necessarily have the big purse. But it's a passionate project. And, if people are down for that, the payoff could be great.
So do you have to love the film, and do you watch it before you decide you're going to work on it?
Oh, if I could, that'd be amazing. But
and how well are you actually getting involved as a music supervisor on a film that's going to be made?
It's different with each project. Sometimes I'll get involved, like with Quentin, I'll get involved way, way, way early on before pre-production begins. If it's a film that has a lot of pre-records or a lot of shooting to a lot of music, like characters singing on camera, for instance, or concert scenes like that Be Cool sequence with Aerosmith, which was awesome. Then I'll come on with just the script, before we shoot, and work on creating pre-recordings that actors either lip sync to, or with Hilary Swank, she sang her own vocals on camera, so we'll do that. Sometimes, like I was telling you before, if, a lot of times they'll cast actors to be dreamboat singers, and they're supposed to sing on camera and play guitar and be dreamboats on camera, and they aren't singers, and they've never held a guitar in their life. That's like kind of a pet peeve of mine. So I will endeavor to have a rock school for the actors to really get used to taking the guitar strap on and off, putting the pick in their mouth, like really getting organic with the instrument so that they're not, so that it's not awful. So that it's not, you don't believe it. And that's...
Who's teaching them that? Like, are you teaching them that? How to...
No, I wish I would. I often get musicians to do it. For one, I actually got, Nancy Wilson from Heart did rock school for me for a movie called P.S. I Love You, where Gerard Butler had to play guitar on camera, and so she helped him, learn how to hold it, and So, and then also if the actor is not a singer, I'll cast their voice, their singing voice. So I'll have them speak or sing Happy Birthday or whatever, and then I'll go through singers and try and accurately cast their voice so that it's not like David Bowie's voice coming out of someone's, other face. So, yeah.
Well, you've sort of touched on...
Never mind.
It's Friday, guys.
I'm sorry.
You've sort of touched on, just showing how broad a music supervisor's role is. It's not just finding the song and clearing it and putting it in the film. Give us, I guess, a bit of a wrap on all of the things that you do in your day-to-day, depending on what you're working on, because there's a lot, isn't there?
There is a lot.
There's rock school.
It's rock school, man. It can be as in-depth as you want it to be. I mean, I'm kind of a control freak. So I handle all musical aspects of a film. So I'll get the script. I'll go through the script and if there's not notations for music, and sometimes if there is, I'll make a list of moments for music, and even moments where I think there could be music. I'll help budget, which sometimes doesn't work because producers most often don't budget for music. But I'll help select spots where I think music is going to go. If it's a bar scene, there's gonna be music in the background. You don't have a bar that doesn't have any music in it, unless it's a sports bar. But so I'll do that. Like I said, I work with the directors on picking songs. I also cast composers and work with the composers. A lot of times directors may not feel comfortable communicating and articulating what they're looking for with a composer, so I'll do that as well. And I also do rock school, and I do clearances. I do my own negotiating for rights because I am a control freak. And if I suggest a song, I want to make sure we can get it. I mean, I'm not going to go out and give a director a whole wish list of things that they can't ever in a million years afford. Or
So are you checking that before you even present those as options to the directors?
oftentimes, yeah. Yeah.
Which is a lot of work to do when you don't know whether it's going to be used or not.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. It's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart, this job. No, it can be as all-encompassing as you want it to be.
Yeah.
Music's a huge part of movies, and if it's all working right, then it can be magic. So it's my job to just make sure the magic doesn't fall apart.
Well, there's obviously a lot of planning that goes on, and it is a long game, but even while we were watching that video just backstage, you mentioned in that amazing scene with Bruce Willis and Ving Rhames in Pulp Fiction, where
Right.
he's singing in the car. That was very much kind of, off the cuff, wasn't it? That wasn't something that was long planned.
That was kind of fun, actually. Quentin was on the set, and he called the music supervisor. I was the music coordinator on that. Karen Rackman was the music supervisor, and she and I used to love to make mixtapes of just goofy stuff that we liked. And one particular mixtape that we had made, like just days before, was some, fun, kitschy country songs that we thought would make a great mix. And I actually had Hello Walls by Fair and Young on there because I thought that'd be kind of fun for him to sing too. But he called from the set and said, Bruce wants to sing something. I need something. And we just happened to have this cassette. And I was like, let's send him that. So he picked up from that. It turned out to be pretty cool. Brought them, made that song kind of cool again.
Well, that's the other thing, and I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about your relationship with Tarantino and what a massive collaboration that has been, but that must get you, really jazzed to see these songs lifted from obscurity, and then all of a sudden they're getting this second life through these films, whether it's with Tarantino or with plenty of other films that you've worked on. That must be hugely gratifying.
It's amazing, and it's, yeah, it's amazing. And especially with a director like Quentin, music it's just such a huge part of his storytelling style. And he never just crams a song in just to have a song somewhere. He always gives it enough room to breathe and makes it front and center. We had one instance, I didn't tell you this, but we had one instance where Django Unchained, it really was a cool story that resonated with some amazing songwriters. So I was able to get Quentin to use new songs that, he'd never agreed to do that before in the past. So I was able to get him songs by, John Legend and stuff that he'd never heard before. And this is a director who's very, he's kind of a control freak too about. I reached out to Frank Ocean to write a song for the movie and said, if you do a love song or a vengeance song, something like that might work. And we got this beautiful song. What was it called? Wise Men. I don't know if you ever heard it. He didn't release on it. He released a link of it later, but it was gorgeous and thoughtful and special. But it didn't fit anywhere in the movie, and try as we might. And Quentin tried. He just couldn't find a place to put it, and he decided not to use it. And as a result, he wrote a response. He wrote in Rolling Stone, I think, where he just said, Frank sent an amazing song that I couldn't do it justice, so I let it go. I didn't want to just shove it in someplace because that wasn't his intention, So.
How does that feel for you, though, to have gone to an artist and said, can you write this? And the writer's like, it's just not going to work. It's slightly awkward, isn't it?
I'm a huge Frank Ocean fan. I want it so badly. He ended up using it for a different movie, and it was an end title song and was beautifully used. So that was cool. And Frank was cool. Frank was... that is why we released the statement to the press, was because, it was important that he not be disrespected, because we are all fans of Frank. But my heart was ripped out of my chest. There's always that gamble, because I'm not the final say, the director is. I'm like a casting director, so all I can do is offer these gems, and if they fit, great. If they don't, it's just not the kind of, work we're doing.
Yeah. How did you become a music supervisor? Because anybody who hears what this job is just like immediately, I want that job. How the heck do you get that job?
It's a hard one to answer because I've been doing it for so long. There wasn't like a succinct, I didn't take a class or anything. My background was different. My background was in acting and writing and directing, and so I moved out to Los Angeles and wanted to be that. And I'd always been in bands and stuff, nothing you've ever heard of, so don't look it up.
Have you ever put your own music into films?
Huh?
Have you ever put your own music into films?
No.
Just checking.
Bad breakup songs. I have the biggest respect for recording artists. I'm not a recording. And songwriters. Bad poetry, me. But so when I was hanging out, I met actor Tim Roth. He was pals. We were a group of friends that were. I met him when he first came over from the UK to hang out in LA, and he just met this young unknown director, Quentin Tarantino, and they were going to do this movie called Reservoir Dogs. And Tim would say, you've got to meet this guy. I think he's going to be something big. So Quentin would come over, and we'd all hang out, and he talked a mile a minute. I mean, as he does, and he was just captivating. And we talked about music and kind of hit it off from there, and he's really why I became a music supervisor. He and Tim introduced me to the woman who was doing music for Reservoir Dogs, and I worked for her forever until she was like, "Get out." And that's the story of that. I mean, I think one of the things that makes me approach the job the way I do is because I did come from that background of writing and directing and acting. That part of me pays attention to story and pays attention to pace, and that those things are most important to me, as opposed to let's do an awesome playlist. I love playlists. I love DJing, but film's music supervision isn't DJing, and because you really, at the end of the day, if the music doesn't fit the story, it's going to make the whole thing suffer. It's got to soar.
Yeah, how do you feel when you see things like Dark Side of the Moon set to The Wizard of Oz? Do you like that when the music is taken? You know what I mean? Like the context of a story is completely changed because of the music. How do you feel when you see that?
If it's done well, I mean, if it's done well, ironic uses are cool. But it does have to be stylistically supported, So, yeah. I don't know if I can tell that story, but I guess I can. We were talking backstage about, sometimes a director will have a concept that may not fit what the actual story is. Like there's a movie I'm working on called Marshall. It's coming out soon. And it's a period piece about Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American Supreme Court justice. But it takes place in the 40s when he was a young lawyer, badass lawyer. It is a period piece. It's shot very film noir, but realistically telling the story. It's not stylistically shot to support like mashups or remixes or hip hop. So that was a situation where we did have to sit down and talk about direction and an overall concept for the film and the music in it. And what we decided was not to do the Baz Luhrmann, amazing Baz Luhrmann, Great Gatsby type take on doing a period piece. We would stick to the period, give it an awesome jazz swagger score, and use period pieces, and then just have an awesome end title song.
And you convinced him of that?
Yes.
For the good of the film?
For the good of the film.
It must be hard when you're doing that, though, with directors, and some directors would be more determined than others, I guess, and immovable, but for you to go in there and it's their story and say, look, I know best.
Oh, well, I don't do that. I don't come in and say,
not to their face.
No, of course not. But it is through discussion, and it's through a lot of discussion and trial and error too. I'll use things to illustrate a point or whatever. But yeah, we'll talk about it. I'm never going to go in and tell a director what to do. That's not my deal. It's not my jam. I'm there to support, and sometimes my support is hey, how about this instead?
Yeah,
kind of a thing.
The right song for the right scene.
Yes.
Did you and Quentin Tarantino hit it off the first time you met?
We did. Yeah, we did. Sure. I mean, he's such a fun guy. He's totally a fun guy. Yeah. Yeah. Didn't date. We never dated. He never.
I'm
he's
not
my-
asking. There's nothing going on in my eyes that suggests you dated.
Yeah, no, okay. No. No.
Just because I was like eyeballing you then. I was like,
Look at me like that. No, no. He's like a brother. We're not.
But how? I mean, you've alluded to it, and but you say that both you and he are control freaks. So how does it work when you're together? How collaborative can you be in the relationship in sourcing the music for those films? Where, as I said, music is such a huge part of every one of his films.
He knows I have his back. That is what it is. He knows that whatever, sometimes when he writes his scripts, most of the time when he writes his scripts, he writes with certain things in mind. And he has his heart set on those things. And if he can't get them, it would crumble. So I just make sure that that's not the case. And that can be very hard sometimes, but I will go to the ends of the earth to make sure that I don't have to look him in the eye and say, they said you couldn't have it.
Have you ever had to tell him that?
One time I did. Well, yeah.
Yeah, what are the ones that have gotten away? Can you tell us?
There's only one, and it's not something I share often. This isn't going to be on, is this going to be on? Well, it's not something I share often just because I don't like the...
There's a whole bunch of people with smartphones tweeting this, so
shit.
probably...
No. But for Inglourious Bastards, there was a piece of music by a particular composer who was, during the World War II, had been in association with Hitler. And his estate was not willing to allow us to use music. They didn't want to have anything having to do with World War II or the Nazis or anything, and justifiably so. So yeah, that was the one time. And I did push it as far as I could to the estate. And when it was just a hard no, I had to. And that one was an easy one for him to let go. He was like, all right, left turn, I'll use David Bowie instead, which he did, which was amazing.
Yeah, that was an incredible moment in that film. Just want to rewind a little bit about that process, because you sort of mentioned it before, that the process of selecting music with Quentin begins at the start because the music is there when he's thinking about the story. Can you just paint the picture? And for anybody who didn't hear, Mary did the Take 5 with me this morning. You guys were all either drunk or getting drunk first thing in the morning or sleeping, so you probably missed it. But can you walk us through the process of that first read through and how he introduces the story to you? Because it's so fascinating to me.
It's pretty, it was a front row seat, really, to one of the world's greatest storytellers, I have to say. So I'll come over to his house. He has a record room in his house that is set up like a record store, basically, with bins, with vinyl in them, separated by style and, artist. And I'll sit on the couch and he'll stand up and he'll start telling me the story. And if it's appropriate, he will stop. And he will go over to the record player and play a piece on the record, and then wait for that to finish, and then he'll go back to telling the story. So it's sort of like that sometimes, like Django Unchained was sort of like that, which was fun. And I'm, by the way, I don't know if you've ever heard him speak, but he speaks a mile a minute. I mean, and so I'm also taking notes really fast and, trying to write everything down. So there's that kind of a way of beginning to work. And then, as I say, because we've worked together for so long, I know him. I know what, I know how to support what he is doing. What he's laying down, I know how to pick it up. So if there's a situation where there's an open scene, or if there's a, like with Django Unchained, being able to open the door with new songs, that was a huge thing. So being able to create a new piece for him out of Tupac and James Brown. We had we said this on the show, but there was an opportunity with Django Unchained. Our record label, the executive was the executor of Tupac Shakur's estate. And so we had an opportunity to use new, unused vocals from Tupac's vault. He was prolific, never stopped working. So there's a vault of unused music that he's created that we could be releasing Tupac albums forever, because he just always, and he would have friends in, and it was amazing to be able to hear these vocals. So anyways, we had an opportunity to create a new song, but that's not really, I knew that wasn't going to be the way to get it to him, to Quentin. He's not going to say, yeah, give me that, I'll put it in my movie. He has to hear it, created. So to give it the extra in to see, to make sure that he use it, I picked a song that I knew he dug and that worked for the scene and was in his category of soul. So James Brown, The Payback, put that underneath the lyrics to this. I was looking for Vengeance lyrics in the vault and found them in Untouchable. So put those lyrics on top of the James Brown remix, and Tupac's engineer put together the whole thing with dialogue from the film, and so we created a new track for Quentin, and he loved it. And he put it on one of the most bloody gun battles, oh my God, in the film.
Which for Quentin is like, when you're talking about it being one of the most bloody, that's horrifically bloody.
I mean, it is, and so there's that. So then I have to clear that with James Brown's estate, and they're very touchy about violence, and so here I am, like, tap dancing. It has to be so over the top because it's so important when he gives himself up to save his bride. I mean, it's like so they did let us use it, but yeah, I got off track. I can't remember what the question was.
No, you didn't get off track at all. What's that feeling like? Because I'm just thinking about this process of you getting these rare, unheard vocals from Tupac's vault, approaching James Brown's estate, making this song, and then you're there about to play it for Quentin, and you don't know whether he's going to say yes or no. What are you feeling at that point when you've done this huge amount of work to present something completely new?
Well, that's why I control freaked it. That's why I took a track that I already knew he liked. The Payback.
You like sneaking the vegetables into the grilled cheese sandwich for the kids, weren't you?
That was it. That was basically it. And I mean, he's a music lover, so he dug it. He got it right away. So I wasn't that nervous about whether or not he was going to like it. And there was very little, downside. If he didn't dig it, nobody was going to make him use something. So
he has a love of the obscure. The songs that we hear in Tarantino's films are ones that some of us have never heard before, much less, in the last 40 years.
Deep cuts.
Deep cuts. What's the hardest song you've ever had to clear? You can pick 5 if you like.
Good God, all of them. Almost all of them. They are never easy. Because a lot of them, and I've been working with him since before, this is making me sound like I'm 80, but I've been working with him since before the internet, before, Google. So searches used to be going to the record store and getting that big phonologue book and thumbing through that and looking through to find label copy information. So tracking down some of these obscure tracks really did call for some sleuth work on my part, I have to say. But like the Please Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood track for Kill Bill, which was that great flamenco disco track for the bride and Oranishi's final battle. That one, we were flat out denied by the record label because there'd been a decade-long legal dispute between band members, and they just said no. I said, oh, I can't tell him no. I'm not going to tell him no. Why can't I have it? Because we said no. I said, well, why? So I finally find out that I need to track down Leroy Gomez, who is the lead singer of the band. Okay. His last known address in the 80s was in Massachusetts. So I started going through the phone book and calling all the...
And what year was this that you were looking?
This was 2003.
So you had his last known address from 23 years prior?
Yeah.
Great. Good start.
Yeah. So then going through obituaries and trying to, just going through all kinds of ways to find little bits of information and literally calling people on the phone. And finally found his mother on like the 20th call and explained everything really quickly to her because I had seconds ticking before I was going to have to tell Quentin he couldn't have it. And she gave me Leroy's Paris cell phone number So I called Leroy and begged and worked out something, got the lawyers on the phone. I had a conference call and translators and you name it going at the same time and got it worked out in seconds, to spare.
You just on the other end of the phone, just like going like that at that point,
You have no idea. I mean, and that's another thing is that, especially during Kill Bill, we were using so much music from international territories and obscure music from international territories. And I don't, unfortunately, speak any other languages, so I was using translators for a lot of things. And this particular French conversation needed to happen at, pre-LA office hours. So I look out my window. It's like 7 in the morning. I look out my window and my neighbor, who's a French Canadian, was out watering her lawn. And I went out and grabbed her, brought her in. I said, "You've got to translate this for me. I'm going to call these people, translate this." I wrote down what I wanted her to say and had her say it. And they got an English-speaking person on the phone after that. And it was the silliest. So I go to the ends of the earth.
Whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm. She's thanked on the album.
You worked with Ennio Morricone for original pieces of music, which must have been so incredible. What was it like reaching out to that legendary composer and speaking to him about making music for a new Tarantino film?
That's a high point in my career. He was, he at that time he was 87, 86, 87. And he won his first ever Oscar for Best Original Score for that score. And he got awarded by, John Williams. And it was just really an incredible experience. And getting to see Quentin in the same room with his idol, having music made for his movie was an experience that was just like amazing. So yes, working with him was amazing. This was when, I don't know if you were aware about the whole thing with the Hateful Eight script, but it was leaked way before Quentin was willing to let it be out in the public, and so he was pulling it back, and nobody could get a copy of the script. You had to actually go to his house to read it. He didn't even give me the final chapter of the script and stuff, so keeping it very under wraps. And so I had to get the script translated and sent to Ennio with all of these constraints, So I was getting my friends involved and stuff, and I actually got Ennio's lovely wife, one of her good friends, to hand deliver it to her. So she read it first, and then she gave it to her husband. And Ennio read it and was thinking about it, and she said, "This is a masterpiece. You have to do this." And so he read it again, and he said he started thinking of the theme with when reading the script, the movement of the stagecoach and the menace that's coming ahead. And if you hear that theme that he created, it's pretty iconic. It's beautiful. So yeah, stick a fork in me. I'm done. That was amazing.
There's another moment in The Hateful Eight, which I remember being in the cinema watching it, and Jennifer Jason Leigh is singing a song, and all of a sudden she starts singing about Botany Bay, and I'm like, what the fuck? What? We're in the middle of the wilds of America, and she's singing about Botany Bay?
Jim Jones of Botany Bay. Yes.
I mean, where does that come from? And are you teaching her Australian folk ballads in your rock school to get ready for that?
There was a rock school involved with that, but that was a really interesting situation. I mean, Quentin is, of course, he has an affinity for Australia. He also can do the accent, so I think that has something to do with his affinity for it, but which he did in Django Unchained. He played an Australian. He had the idea. He wanted to do Jim Jones. The lyrics are perfect for a convict, and she was in chains when she was for almost the whole film. So he says to her, "I want you to sing this on camera and play guitar. Do you play guitar?" No, she does not play guitar. And so he said, "I really feel like you can." I mean, I'm saying, we can have somebody play the guitar part and she can pretend. We can do that, and it'd be so easy for the actress, and but No, he wanted her to learn how to play it. So I hired a guitar teacher, and who had to be chill and cool, who could be on the set with all of these amazing actors, and not be like photobombing and trying to get their.
Don't be a dickhead, basically.
Don't be a dickhead. Just be chill, be cool. And Jennifer worked on that song every single day. She worked on the guitar part. She worked on singing it and playing it, and got really good at it. I mean, months she was working on it. So, she performed it on camera, one take, I think, and
it's part of the scene, isn't it? She's actually performing it while they're filming. You can hear it on the soundtrack. Like the film is happening around her. It's not.
Oh yeah, it's very live.
Yeah.
So live that the infamous guitar situation happened.
But we're not going to talk about that.
No, we're not going to talk about that.
You just brought it up. You told me you didn't want to talk about it.
It's all right. I brought it up. It's okay. It's not like I'm dropping a bomb. Everybody, it's out there.
Does everybody know about the infamous guitar story? I don't think everyone does know.
Oh, there was a vintage Martin. They borrowed. This wasn't me, by the way. This was props. They borrowed a guitar from the Martin Guitar Museum. A vintage guitar to use on camera. And the idea was that she was going to play this vintage guitar, and then Quentin was going to yell, "Cut!" And then Kurt Russell's character was going to say, "Music time's over," and grab the guitar and smash it. She was so good. Everybody was so enthralled. It didn't cut. Kurt didn't know, and smash it. And so that response that Jennifer has is like her going, "What? What?"
How much is that guitar worth?
I don't know, but everybody was shocked and appalled. I mean, it was by no means cavalier. It was pretty, oh my God, what the heck? Yeah, so it was bad.
I'm sure there were some nice letters
But
written.
that's a note to, people with priceless things, don't loan them to
It was definitely
film
their
sets.
fault for learning the guitar, that's right.
That's
definitely
what props
their
are
fault.
for.
I have a feeling you're going to not tell me anything, given that we've been talking about the secrecy around Tarantino's films, but are you working on any new films with Quentin Tarantino at the moment?
He's working. He's writing.
He's writing. Okay.
That's all I got.
That's all you got. More broadly, I guess, we're here at a music conference which is about people getting their music to, the public and also via a lot of industry. You're here for a reason. You've been seeing a lot of bands and hearing a lot of new music. Do you often seek out unknowns for, in songwriters and composers for films? How much of a part of your catalogue does that make up when you're pitching music to directors?
Always. I'm always looking for new, cool music. Yeah, what music supervisor doesn't want to be the one to discover, a new band? So, yeah, that's always part of it. There's something that supervisors will do. There's a ton of us in the States, and what we'll do is send out, based on our projects, we'll send out what's called as briefs, where we say, here's the scene, here's the style of music we're looking for. Sometimes we'll attach a sample of something that the director has liked. Some briefs are really good and really in-depth and give good direction. Some are very, very vague, just depends. And there'll be a budget parameter or whatever, and we'll send those out to sync agents to get, their selections to try. And so that's oftentimes with people who do a lot of TV, that's a constant, keep a rolling. We're always looking for this kind of thing. I tend to send those out only when it's, I've tried a bunch of other things. Because I like to,
Do you like the thrill of the chase too much?
I really do.
Yeah.
But it's always, I always learn something new or hear something good. And there are a few sync agents who really take good direction. So they're very good at honing in on the brief and sending only things that are right for that. So that's something that is, I've often talked about with new up-and-coming songwriters and artists, is becoming familiar with sync agents if you're interested in getting synced in like LA or whatever, in Hollywood. There are a few, and I think their deal is something where they take a percentage of, not your publishing, they shouldn't, they take a percentage of your sync fees that they are able to negotiate for you for the use of your song. So it's a pretty good trade-off to have them, because they usually have relationships with all the different supervisors.
And if someone doesn't have access to a sync agent, are there any other ways that songwriters and composers can get their music in front? What's the best way for people to get the attention of music supervisors like you?
Well, that's the one way. I talked about doing covers in the past. That is, I hate to say it, but that is one of the ways to really catch our attention too, is to do an interesting cover.
How come?
Of a familiar song. Because the familiar is always an easy way to catch attention. Advertisements use a lot of covers, a lot of ingenious covers. It's a standard, basically. And what I've found too is, like, if you're syncing something with dialogue, and you have the budget, using sometimes a song that's familiar to the audience's ear will go to the dialogue rather than being torn away by by the listening to the music. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can lay in the background and still be appreciated while not interfering with the dialogue. So that's one thing that's important about covers.
Can you still be a music fan in the job that you're doing, because you're constantly thinking about how music can be used in different ways and almost processing it in some way? Do you still have that music fan heart beating strong?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big music geek. And like I said, I'm a big, I respect musicians too much, to just take it for granted. Like I don't speed through songs often, I like to hear what is intended. So yeah, a great song can rip me apart. So yeah. Now, that said, if I'm watching a movie and music's used, not in a great way, it'll be hard to watch, because I'll be thinking the whole time of like, what?
How could have been done better?
Yeah.
Control freak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Control freak. So that is kind of a job hazard, is that I can't turn it off if I'm watching something that's not gelling.
From everything that I've read about you, you seem to be someone who does champion the artist. You're there, you want to make sure that artists are paid for the work that they do, that music is a very valuable part of not only film, but also of culture. It's a huge part of culture. So with that in mind, and from an economical point of view, do you know everyone's price now? Do you sort of, when someone says, I want to use this artist or that song, you just kind of got this little, this is how much everything costs? You know what everyone's, for lack of a better word, what everyone's worth?
Not what they're worth, but what is the going rate. Because I've been doing it for so long, I can eyeball something and say, well, that's going to be, if it's classic rock, it's going to be this. If it's this, yeah, I can pretty much guess how much things are going to be. There used to be a creative way to do things with independent movies where you would do step deals, but those are less and less.
What's a step deal?
A step deal was it was, I think they're gone, but they were a way of like paying an upfront fee and then having bumps upon box office being met at 3 million, 6 million, 8 million at the box office. The artist would get another, which would make it easier for independent films to put larger songs in their movies, because they'd be able to pay things on layaway, basically. But these days it's kind of difficult because everybody's cracking down on, So it is a matter of, if you're an artist that's being offered something and you're not sure if it's the right amount of money and you're not sure about it, you just really have to go with your gut of, does the film speak to you? Does the cast speak to you? Does the, and weigh the pros and cons of getting involved in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get many artists who are of higher standing and larger popularity that will be like, you know what, I really believe in this film, and
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to give this song for, a much cheaper rate, whatever you can afford?
Yes. Yeah, it depends. But yeah, I've had an opportunity to work on a few things that were really heartfelt. Like documentaries are often in that state because they don't have big budgets at all. They're such labors of love. But I worked on one really amazing documentary called How to Dance in Ohio. How to Dance in Ohio? Yes, that was it. And it was about this doctor who works with autistic teenagers, teaching them, and it was getting them ready to hold a spring dance. And taking months and months and months to prepare these teenagers on the autism spectrum for this big event that was going to be a social event, and and the culmination was dancing to popular songs and stuff, and lovely. I mean, Katy Perry was absolutely lovely with letting us use Firework, a remix of her song Firework for it, and it's perfect for the end.
Yeah, absolutely. You've worked in music supervision for more than 20 years. A lot has changed in the music industry. What's changed for you in your particular role? What are the biggest shifts you've seen in the time that you've been doing your amazing job?
Wow. Let me think about that. It used to be harder to reach out to bands. Like you mentioned Reality Bites. By the way, that was Karen Rackman, who was the supervisor. I was the coordinator, but still.
You still worked on it.
Yes.
You were still hustling.
It's so funny. Linda Perry, the songwriter from Four Non Blondes in the 90s.
I remember. We remember.
There's no come on. That awesome song, What's Going On. We wanted
in
to use
Australia,
that.
we don't like hoot and holler like they do in the States. Oh,
okay.
There's certainly no hell yeahs on a Friday at Big Sound.
Okay, I got it. Okay. So Linda Perry, Four Non Blondes, we wanted to use that song, What's Going On. What's going on? And she turned us down for that movie. And I have another story about that movie too. And actually, just like a week ago, I was at a party and her partner was there, and they said, how come we haven't been able to meet with you yet? Linda thinks you're still mad at her for Reality Bites. Would she turn you down? I was like, God, no, but yeah, I think I'm still mad at her.
You better give me a song.
But that's another interesting one. Reality Bites was happening at the same time as Pulp Fiction.
What two very different films to be working on?
Two very different films, but the directors wanted to use a similar song. What's that song by the Knack? I'm having a brain.
My Sharona?
My Sharona. They both wanted to use My Sharona for two very different scenes, right? Quentin, okay. Reality Bites wanted to use it for a scene where the kids all go into a convenience store and they hear a song on the radio and they start dancing around to a song on the radio. So that's that scene. And then Quentin wanted to use it for the scene with the Gimp. So we had to call up the music publisher and say, okay, we have this unique situation. You can choose between these two scenes. Same budget, basically, but choose between these two scenes. This one's this one, this one's this one. And they chose Reality Bites. So that was pretty funny.
But every time you watch Reality Bites, you're thinking of the Gimp,
I'm thinking of the Gimp.
Amazing.
So
I think we have a little bit of time for Q&A. I don't think I can top that, but see if you can. Has anybody got any questions in the audience for Mary? We've got a roving mic. Just put your hands up. Anyone? Bueller? Fry? Oh, right up the back. Making the Big Sound volunteers work for it.
Mary, I know Tarantino feels strongly about not using music that is considered iconic or has been used in an iconic way previously. He feels that Be My Baby is forever the opening credits of Mean Streets, and Dirty Dancing is to be slighted forever for using that song at all in their film. Have you ever been beaten to the punch in that respect, or have you ever beaten anyone else in that respect? I was going to bring up the My Sharona thing, but has it ever happened in any other instance?
Link Ray, he and Robert Rodriguez were both working on films at the same time as Pulp Fiction, and I was working with Robert on, the heck was that movie called? Rebel Highway. And they both wanted to use Link Ray, similar song, and actually both did use Link Ray, Rumble, which is an iconic song. So there's that. But I have to correct you. I think it depends. Quentin's not against using songs that have been used iconically. As a matter of fact, that's kind of one of his things. putting out fire with gasoline from Cat People, and he used that in an iconic way. He just likes to repurpose things. He's a great recycler. And a lot of times he does that for a specific reason. He's the kind of storyteller that's going to make references to old movies. He's going to try and get his audience to watch all these old movies. That's he's very passionate about cinema. So when he refers to a song from another movie, there's a very good reason for it. So yeah, there's that. That's the only one I can think of besides My Sharona. Yeah.
Any other questions in the crowd? Down the front? Everyone's bathed in blue. It's very noir, isn't it?
I know.
Hello. Testing. I was going to ask, with the Australian and New Zealand film industry picking up a little bit more over the past few years and to the future, do you see this area being sent back to kind of places that already know what they're doing in the States to do the music supervision, or do you foresee that they might open some opportunities down south?
Your question is your question about music supervisors here? Oh, I absolutely feel like there's opportunities for music supervisors to be homegrown here and in New Zealand. I don't know how it works here, actually. I think it's different. I think you have publishers and record companies that act as sync agents already. But I don't know how it works here, but I definitely think there's a place for them, and I think music supervision, as we've tried to make you aware of, is really important, especially nowadays that there's so much music out there, and music is so important to projects and advertisements. That's something that's changed over the years. Songs have been used in television and in advertisements more and more, and that's become, a huge new way of revenue for artists and getting discovered.
Yeah, absolutely. As album sales.
Does that answer your
down as
question?
well.
I do think I think there should be.
Any other questions in the audience? Over here.
Hi, Mary. I was just going to ask about what you were saying about with Ennio and Quentin being in the same room together. Whether it was it the kind of thing where Quentin just sort of let Ennio do what he does, or was there a lot of sort of notes about the score and that kind of thing, or was it just that he's that much of a hero to him that he just allowed him to do it?
That's a very good question. One thing that did happen that was pretty awesome was Ennio tried to stump Quentin on his Ennio knowledge. He played him a song from Run Man Run, and within the first, he said, I want to play, He didn't say it in English, he speaks Italian. But he said, I want to play this for you.
Mi scusi.
Yeah, and see your thoughts. And so he got he got 4 notes in, and Quentin goes, Run Man Run. It was the funniest, most awesome exchange that just happened. And the answer to the question is, yeah, there is one answer to that. Ennio had delivered the score. There was one final scene. I don't know if you've seen The Hateful Eight, but there's a scene, I don't want to ruin it for you, but there's a scene with the Lincoln
Spoiler
letter.
alert, block your ears,
at
everyone.
the end where Walt Goggins' character reads the Lincoln letter. And there was a piece of score that Quentin really wanted to keep from another movie in there. And it really was a situation where it would be better for us if we had a more complete Ennio score, and we needed a few more minutes of score. And also, it just made more sense to have a complete piece by our composer. So it was a matter of asking Quentin if it was okay if we could have Ennio try his hand at doing a piece for that last moment. At first it was like, no, Don't mess with it. And then he agreed. So we sent the scene to Ennio with that piece of music attached, thinking he's going to hear it and do something similar. He did nothing similar to that piece of music. He did his own thing, which was amazing. With the trumpet, it makes more sense. And so we sent it back. He sent it back, and I had the music editor attach it to the picture and send it to Quentin that way. And seeing it to picture the way that it works, he was like, it's fabulous. So that is one way. But the other thing is, Quentin's scripts are written almost as if he's sitting there telling you the story. So his scene descriptions, his character descriptions, everything is very unique to him, describing things to you. So in a way, sending the script to Ennio way early on, he was directed by Quentin, basically in the script. So that's my answer to that. He didn't stop him and say, more oboe there. But it was pretty awesome to watch.
When you're working with composers in that regard, I mean, you worked with Howard Shore on the Spotlight soundtrack. Yeah. How do you get them to understand the tone of the film if the film is not complete, if they've only got bits of information? Like, is that a tough thing, knowing that you're the conduit between the director and the composer, and you have to make both parties understand what each other is doing?
It used to be a tough thing because I am very respectful of composers. But then I realized score is a huge part of movies, and so if I'm not in agreement with the way it's going, I really should make sure that everybody's talking to each other and making it work right. So one of the things we did when we started working on that was talk about tone and theme and sound and lead instruments. I mean, I try and get directors to talk about what kind of sounds they're hearing when they're putting it together. I also help them come up with a temp score. I'll help them pick songs, pick pieces of music from existing scores to help articulate mood and pace, and sometimes lead instruments to tone to composers, because that'll help the dialogue start between the two of them. So that's one thing we did with Spotlight. Wanted it to sound like a 70s detective movie. So it was a lot of Hammond B3 organ and piano, and that kind of sound.
Yeah.
Although when we very first showed the movie to Howard Shore, and Tom, the director, said, I really see this as All the President's Men. Howard's response was, well, there's about 15 minutes of music in All the President's Men, so we should probably do that. And I said, no, this isn't a 70s audience. This is a 15 audience, so we need to have music in there. So we ended up working very closely on that.
Do you think that audiences' association with music in film has changed over the years? That we expect that there'll always be predominantly music filling just about every scene?
Well, I think it's the advent of the way that we've been fed entertainment. I think it is. If you look at the difference, I mean, yeah, there is a lot more music, background music. Yeah, it helps. It helps ease people into story. It helps tie things together. I'm not a historian, but I do feel like there's a lot more music used these days.
Which is good for you, isn't it?
It's awesome for me.
Yeah.
Like I've said, actually with the right music, I can change a scene. I can fix editing problems. I can fix, sometimes even fix actors' performances. I mean, it's kind of amazing what music can do.
Yeah.
So.
It's a very persuasive force, and you're a very persuasive force within the industry. Can you please join me in thanking Mary Ramos today?
Thank you, guys.